as everybody that has been following the Metal Summit and reads on Blabbermouth and reads on Metal Sludge, you have now came back to being the gruesome foursome of the BulletBoys. It's the whole original lineup. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'll tell you honestly, you guys, if you had asked me 8, 9 months ago, the likelihood of BulletBoys having a full reunited setup, I would have said it's never going to fucking happen. And it's crazy how life takes some turns every now and again. And I was sitting talking with my the original band manager. His name's Dave Kaplan. And Dave, we were just having a little bite, and then he had said, Jimmy, he goes, why aren't you playing with the guys? And the reasons that I had said, even at that point, really didn't hold water. And he said, well, he goes, remember, Robin Crosby wishes he could be here to reunite with Rat. Janie Lane wishes he could fucking walk over to Dixon's place and say, let's get the band, going. A lot of these guys wish they could do it. He said, Jimmy, don't get to a place where you wish you could do it again, man. And I sat there and I was like, holy shit. Like, that made a lot of sense. And then so I made a call to the bass player, Lonnie, and because he was, at the time, he was the only guy speaking to the original singer, to Mark Tureen. He was the only guy talking to him. And I said, Lonnie, why don't you just for shits and giggles, go ahead and call Mark and just see where his head is at about a full reunion. And before I knew it, Lonnie was so excited about it, he went and called everybody and told everybody there was a reunion. And then little by little, it was really kind of a bummer because we had already had a situation going on that kind of fell apart. And then there we were, you guys. It was like, I guess it can only equate it, and we've all probably had this experience. It's like when you're with a woman, early in your sexual career, doing what you do, and then and not seeing her for 25 years, and then getting back into bed with her. It was pretty much that kind of a jarring experience. Once we had our first rehearsal, and we all got into a room out here in the valley, and I remember I counted off. I can't even think of what song it is now, but I counted it off, and we came in. And then that voice, because the three of us, Mick, Lonnie, and myself, we've had another situation going on. So we've been together for a couple of years, but it was that one factor that we didn't have. And though we had, Andrew Freeman, who I still think is one of the fucking best singers in the history of rock, it just wasn't the same, of course, because there's a voice, it's just like the drum parts are very unique, and the guitar parts, and so on and so on. So, it was a moment that I had to really kind of sit back. And as a drummer, those of us know, we have the entire view like a quarterback. I can see everybody. And I remember like watching, Mick, jamming and playing the guitar. And I watched Lonnie jump him down. And there was Mark Tureen in the front. And I thought, you know what? This was supposed to happen the way it happened. And I'm just, again, you guys, I'm hopeful that through this pandemic and through everything else that we're going through right now, that the band will be able to get out there and make up the dates that we had already that are rescheduled. So we're all really excited right now.
That's
awesome. Great. So who would like to ask the first question? How about you, Bob?
Well, my whole question is, I love the fact that, one, you have a guitar in your hand for being a drummer. So me, same thing. Guitarist first, picked up bass because I could get more gigs. Tried my luck at drums, but it's kind of like teaching a pig to dance. So because really it is, I mean, your whole brain is wired differently, for yourself. I wouldn't expect Eddie Van Halen to act like Alex.
Right.
So how do you wear both, those shoes?
Well, what's funny is that, again, in BulletBoys, what I would do with the guys, because I've always had ideas and song concepts and stuff. So sometimes, like, I would just hum things to the bass player and say, it's like a walking bass line that goes doom, 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 boom, boom, boom. And then he would do that. Then I had the idea to present to the guys. But it wasn't until around 90, I want to say like 97, 98. I was living in Hollywood. Me and my family moved out to Whittier, California. And I remember trying to call other musicians from Hollywood to come out to Whittier, which is about an hour and 10-minute drive from Hollywood in traffic. And I remember nobody wanted to come to my house. Everyone was like, dude, that's too long of a drive, bro. So I sat there and I taught myself to play a basic, because like I said, I played chords as a kid, played guitar, and then I jumped on the drums after about a year. But then I learned how to play bass. I actually played bass proper, where I took lessons and I did the whole thing. I love the bass guitar. I think the bass guitar, when it's done right, is a very sexy fucking instrument. Yeah. So I play the bass, and then I would then I had a local guitar player at the time then come over and play guitar parts. But over the course of the years, I got back into playing more often, and then I thank God for YouTube, because you guys can look at any 9-year-old Asian kid playing fucking Eruption now, and it's like, what the hell? If that kid can play it, I can learn how to play GAD, So I did the thing that most guys do. I took lessons online where I just watch a guy play, and that's kind of what helped me to get to it. But now it's really nice, because I've written songs for other people, in Lynch Mob. The last the record they put out, the first single was my song that I had written. I've done other songs with George, and to have George Lynch play your song, and don't get me wrong, I played him my little, kind of just my simple riff, and then he George Lynched it, wow. And makes it fucking sexy and cool. So that was a really cool experience, but it's been nice to be able to explore these new things. And now, for those of you who are guitar players, I finally get it. I have in front of me about 10 guitar pedals, but in the closet, I got about 10 more, and and my wife keeps saying, "So are you done?" No. And I'm like, I go, honey, honestly, I don't think I've got started yet, And so that to me has been the new problem that I've achieved as a musician is, fuck, I need more pedals.
Well, if you only have 17, it becomes very illegal, because then you're a pedophile.
Oh my God.
I'm going to get a shirt that says that. I love that.
All right, Angel, you have a question for Mr. Jimmy?
Yes, and I got stuff from the fans. Not sure what you guys want me to do first.
Whatever you want.
How about you and then the fans?
Okay. My question is, what's the biggest misconception about life on the road? I know a lot of people think, life on the road is easy, it's beautiful, but what's the biggest misconception about life on the road?
That how unhealthy do you eat? That's the thing that, because remember, you're traveling most of the day. And unless you're like the Motleys or the Aerosmith or the Van Halens, you're not eating top of the line healthy food. You're eating food when and where you can. And most of the time it's truck stop. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing bad with it, but you can't do it every night and then try to perform at a high level. That's the problem, is you end up, you get a lot of, problems from eating unhealthy. And that was one of the things that I remember when I got off the road from the first tour, which the first BulletBoys tour, meaning like, for the first album, excuse me, that thing was, I want to say that was 14 months of touring, and with about like a month or maybe a week or two of breaks, that's it. So we were out well over a year, and I remember I got home and I was really in a bad way. And of course, not even mentioning, but now I'm clean and sober, but not even mentioning the alcohol and the drugs. My son and his friends, like, they'd come over. Sometimes they'd watch the videos on the replay of the Headbangers Ball. They show them. And one of the kids asked me one time, and I say kids, but he was like 16. And then he looked at me and he goes, "Hey, Jimmy, can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." And he goes, "The rock videos they show, like, they're all partied up, and the girls and the sluts and all that stuff, was that true?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "It wasn't." And I go, "No, it was way more than what you see in these videos." Wow. I mean, it was out of control. I mean, we were going crazy with the girls and that, and not to mention, so you get that, you get too much drinking, you get eating unhealthily, not sleeping, and then now you go on stage and there's 10,000 people and you got to perform at a high fucking level. You leave it out there, and then that's why you see a lot of guys, like, they look unhealthy after the first tours, because they are doing all the wrong things. And in the second tour, that's when you see guys looking better, because they start eating healthier. They know when to put a cap back on the bottle. They go, "Dude, I got to chill out tonight. I blew myself out before." So, definitely the misconception is that people think that it's all it's a really easy job, but the food part and the not sleeping part does take its toll, and it can definitely put a crimp in your style.
Gotcha.
Oh. So, Angel, you said we had a couple people ahead.
Yes, Matt Porter says hello. Bridget Sullivan, another person that tunes in every week. Thank you guys very much.
Hello.
Scott Strickland, so cool to see the band play on the Monsters of Rock stage via Facebook a couple weeks ago. You guys were great.
Thank you.
And Matt Porter wants to know who named the song "Fuck" instead of giving it a name that the fans can yell out when we want to hear it.
They said that he asked if somebody named a song.
Who named the song "Fuck"?
I actually don't know that song.
He put F number 9. I'm sorry, F number 9. Sorry about that. My apologies.
Actually, for those guitar players, it's F sharp. That's the chord, F sharp.
Yeah.
And it was the 9th song on the record.
There you go.
F sharp 9. I like his song. We're going to change it to "Fuck" from now on. I can tell Mark, when he introduces the song, this is the song for Porter. Fuck.
So, question. So, Jimmy, so that F number 9 is like, it sounds to me like, when you are rehearsing, you don't have a name, but, okay, let's call it,
You know it. That's exactly how that happened.
So I just leave it that name, that's awesome, dude. I love it.
You're right. You caught us.
Right on.
Sorry,
Jay, do you have a question for Jimmy?
What's up, me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I finally get to have a new conversation with my brother. How are you, dude?
It's so good to see you, Jay.
So good to see you, too. I don't know if this is going to come across, but it's been a minute since the 50 birthday bash in Vegas, dude.
Nice.
That was a lot of fun for Laura's party and Brad, and of course, and you. That's where I met you, and we became really good friends there. It was a great time.
Yeah, so I first of all got to say, thank you, dude. You're such an awesome cat, but also, thanks for, the help in the tutorial and bringing me into, the Jimmy D'Anda family with some education, dude. I mean, that was great.
Yeah, well, again, somebody showed me some stuff back when I was, starting out and coming around, even though, you're not starting out, but somebody did help me out from time to time. And people still help me out to this very day, because I don't have a problem calling up Fred Corey from Cinderella, because he has a much bigger studio than I have. And I'll go, Fred, I'm having a problem with my shit. What do you do? And he'll go, well, first, and then he'll walk me through stuff. So to me, that's about life and about growing and about always learning more stuff. So, dude, you were great, man. You really helped to make that night go off in a very big way, and I thank you for that.
Absolutely, man. And so the first question I had to is kind of piggybacking a little bit off when you were talking about, of course, with the fans wanting to know with the reunion and everything. And what I was kind of curious to ask you is, before you getting in touch with Lonnie about getting the band back together, you guys did a one-off at the Key Club almost 10 years ago now.
Yep.
And my question to kind of start off is, what was it about, and you can even use the Monsters of Rock set you just did, what is it about playing with the guys now that's maybe a bit different from when you guys reformed for that one-off 10 years ago?
Oh, I'll be really honest, you guys, and because me and Mark, because it was really me and Mark that I was having a lot of problems with, I should say we were having problems with each other. The difference between then 10 years ago and this now where we are is that was kind of more under duress. Now, I'm using that word, I mean, not to say that it was a hostile environment, but no one really thought that it was going to work. Everyone went into it with a bad attitude. Everybody went into it going, I don't know, bro. Everybody had reservations, and that's not how this is now. This is a like everybody kind of woke up for a second. Everybody just kind of and again, like I've said before in interviews, that this was this is 25 years in the making. We had to become mature enough individuals. And this thing, because I talked to Bobby Blotzer about this too, about him and getting back with Rat, which he's like, no. But I'm like, dude, look, going beyond anything else, the fans that helped to put everybody in houses and put people in fucking rich cars and all that shit, they would love nothing more when they work their fucking buns off 5 days a week to be able to go, you know what, this summer I'm going to go see Rat, and that's Bobby Blossom, and then it would be great to see the Bullet Boys get together. Now, I'm not saying to live your life for somebody else, but to take advantage of this time period and try to come to an understanding. And that's what the band did, I think. I think Bullet Boys came to an understanding, like, you know what, we are all on borrowed time at this point, you know, and let's not squander it, and let's do it the right way. So that's the difference, Jay, is that back then we did it like, well, all right, let's see what we got. And now we're like, everybody, when people start getting mad on the phone, because musicians are very emotional. We all know that. We wear our heart on our sleeves. So when somebody says something that sounds disrespectful, somebody goes, hey, dude, what's up with that, bro? And then, you know, you start getting a little hot, and then you have to remember and remind somebody, hey, this is we're brothers. Let's remember that we're back to a place that we have not been for long. Let's not let's not ruin it, okay? Let's be respectful of each other. Let's no motherfucking each other. That means if you have an argument with somebody and you didn't get somewhere, go, dude, it's all good, brother. We're gonna figure out another time, and walk away. And we're learning now to kind of like it's like we're growing up, honestly. And so the difference is, like, again, then it was really standoffish. Now it's like, let's really put our best foot forward. So that's the difference.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Yeah, Jay.
Hey, Mr. Max.
Jimmy, thank you, Steve. You know, I'm from Argentina originally, and
Nice.
I always, you know, sometimes I relate my questions to my, you know, when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, you know, and to me, the Sunset Strip, you know, LA was like Mars, you know, like,
Yeah.
I was a boy from a neighborhood, you know, whatever neighborhood you name it, and was like, I will never be there, right? So, you know, like, very briefly, explain to me, because when you were 13 years old, you started to play. You know, you saw all this birth, right, of Sunset Strip, all this movement.
Yeah.
If you can tell me that feeling, you know, how it went from nothing or different, or of a different kind of music to that hair metal, that, you know, amazing, you know, music and movement that happened in the 80s and 90s, early 90s.
You know, I got to tell you honestly, and it's funny that you say this now, because my son is 27 years old, and he plays in bands, and he's toured, and he's done stuff. And every now and again, when I ask him about, like, the movement, when I ask him about where is everybody congregating to start, and he says, Dad, there's a place like that doesn't exist anymore. And I said, you know, that's a sad thing, because I'm telling you guys, now at 52 years old, I got to see in clubs. These are in clubs. I saw, because Randy Rhoads had left to join Ozzy, and then Kevin Dubrow started his own band called Dubrow, and that essentially was Quiet Riot. And I saw them in a small club play to about 30, 40 people. You know, we saw Rat play, you know, early on when they were playing to, like, again, nobody. We were there when Motley Crue was doing 2 shows a night at the Whiskey.
Wow.
You know, we would see them, and Tommy would come out, and I mean, you were seeing, like, you were literally arm's reach away from the guys you idolized, as opposed to the couple years before. You know, I saw Van Halen at the Forum, we saw Queen, you know, we saw Kiss, you know, but those bands were out of reach. That wasn't real to me. That was like, that's a dream. That will never happen. But looking at fucking Tommy Lee at the Whiskey, fucking throwing down, I was like, I can do that. That I want to do. And that in itself, you guys, it gave everybody in our community that fucking, like, we can do this, you guys. We just have to follow the blueprint that those guys did. And it was amazing, because, again, you could, like, travel up and down the Sunset Boulevard and see fucking Edward Van Halen get out of a Porsche and walk into the Rainbow. You're like, you guys, Edward Van Halen. Like, it was fucking, you know, and you're still
unreal.
No matter what. I mean, those are the icons. Those are the guys that changed music for the entire world, not just in rock and roll, the entire world. You know, so I was very blessed to be born here, and I'm from East Los Angeles. I'm from Boyle Heights. I'm a Mexican kid that, you know what, to me growing up, you know, I had Carlos Santana, I had Jose Feliciano. Yeah. I had a handful of guys that I could look up and say, I'm like him. So it was different. So when I got to get there, and then guys like Randy Castillo wound up being one of my good friends, and certain Latinos that became good friends of mine, you know, I felt I was so honored to be one of the guys holding the torch from rock and roll, but through this new area where I could say to kids, you know, where I grew up, you can do this too. You can fucking do this too. Fucking get your friends and get a band together and take this motherfucking shit seriously, because you can have a career. And I did that. And honest to goodness, and I did that for some younger kids. And again, you know, like I said to Jay, you know, if we don't pass this along, it dies. Okay? If I don't give it to the next kid and him to the next kid, rock and roll as we know it will cease. And we can't have that, you guys. So it's so important to continue to support local bands. You know, stop asking for fucking free tickets. Stop saying, hey, bro, can I get a free ticket? Fuck, dude, I have to pay for this shit myself. You know, I work a day gig doing plumbing, and then I rock and roll. I help that guy out. So that's the thing that I try to tell people. Stop asking for free tickets. Go support your fucking bands, brother. They need it. Come on, you know. So, yeah, that's, yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome. So I have a question. You said you grew up in Los Angeles, everything in the heyday, and you grew up playing with some besides with the BulletBoys and going on tour. Because the first time I was introduced to the BulletBoys, it was when you guys went on tour with David Lee Roth in Extreme. And Cinderella, I think the tour was.
Yeah.
Right, like '89. Yeah,
'89. Well, actually, that was Bon Jovi. Cinderella, and it was a whole bunch of it was a nice little slew of bands. But go ahead.
So the question is, besides your bandmates from the band that you had prior to getting together with the BulletBoys, the original lineup, of course, and the band, like the guys from Lynch Mob, like who are your friends that you can like actually say, hey, after social distancing is over, let's go grab a beer. Let's go out to eat. You know, right. Like who was your best man at the wedding? Is it someone we would know?
Right. Well, actually, you know, it's weird because it's really the guys that I knew back then. You know, I'm really close to Chad Smith on Chili Peppers. You know, Fred Corey from Cinderella is somebody who I see him on a regular basis. You know, even like right now during this time period, Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction will come to my house and we will stand 10 feet apart and just talk to each other for like an hour. You know, there's a handful of those guys that, and again, you know, the thing about that, you guys, honestly, even if we weren't playing music, I would be really good friends with these guys because there's a connection there that you know it, like when you're a kid and you know somebody that you're going to be friends with for life. That's how it is with these guys. And George Lynch is one of those guys for me as well. He's, you know, he's one of the guys that helped me during some time periods of my life when things were getting a little dicey, and he put me on the road again. That was back in 2000. And, you know, he's somebody that I'm still like right now. He just I wish you could screenshot. He's texting me right now while we were having this. He's on my screen. But, you know, there's only like, you know, but we all know, you know, everybody, the older you get, your circle gets smaller because you really, you know, you want to trust the people around you. And I think that people find a way to show their true colors. So, you know, I'm not bringing them in so much, but it's a lot of drummers, you know, and there's a handful of singers, you know, but it's really for me, the guys that I've known over the last 20, 30 years, the guys I'm really close to.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Angel.
Yes, I actually have a two-part question.
Nice.
Okay, Ted Templeman produced your albums. First part is, was it the record label decision or the band decision to get Ted to produce your album? And the second part of the question is, how was it working with him?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you what's funny is a lot of people don't know this, but Ted Templeman was the senior VP at of A&R at Warner Brothers Records. Yeah. So Teddy was already he at the time he was already entrenched at the Warner Brothers, what they were, you know. So he was able to pick and choose the bands that he wanted to work with. So initially we had got discovered by a woman named Roberta Peterson, and the thing about it, Roberta Peterson is Ted Templeman's sister. And so she came out when we were doing showcasing for CBS, and we did Geffen, and we did I kind of think there's like one other label, and then she came out from Warner Brothers, and it was funny because she actually ended up signing Jane's Addiction. She signed the Flaming Lips. She signed a bunch of great bands. I mean, very hip, cool bands. And what's funny is she goes, you're not really for me, but my brother, I think, would like you. So I kind of thought she just meant her brother, like some guy who's her brother. I don't know. And then at rehearsal, like a week later, Ted Templeman pulls up in a white Rolls Royce and jumps out of the car, and it's complete mayhem in our rehearsal. And we're like, holy fucking shit, Ted Templeman's coming to see us right now. And he ended up, after seeing us play 7 songs, which was great because you guys, we only had 8 songs as a band. That's how new of a band. We were only together for 6 months. And so we after 7 songs, he stopped us. He offered us a record deal on the spot. Now, here's the thing about working with Ted Templeman. For anybody of us who are in my age group, know that when you look at the back of a Van Halen record, what you see, is the largest thing in that small print is the name Ted Templeman, and then Don Landy was below that. Yeah. So for all my rock and roll life, I would look back, because we all studied the band. Remember how you would study the crew and get to know like all the cool nicknames people had and shit. I remember studying those things, and I remember always looking at Ted Templeman's name. So now, fast forward, not even 10 years later from that time period, and I'm getting ready to count off the first song recording in the studio with BulletBoys and Ted Templeman, and of course Jeff Hendrickson. And I remember just looking through the big glass window and just for a brief second going, holy fuck. Like just knowing that moment, like, I'm about to fucking make my record with Ted Templeman. And a funny story that I've told before, and I'll be brief about this, but so I went and I played the song, and it was a song called Kissin' Kitty on the first album, and I played it, and then I got stopped. And for those of us who've been in the studio before, there's a talkback button that the producer has, which kills every sound in your headphones except for his voice. So it almost sounds like God's talking to you. So I'm playing, and then I hear the talkback goes, hold on, and you're like, it's startling. It's like, whoa, shit. And then we stop it, and then you see him talking, you can't hear anything because it's a gigantic glass window. And he hits the talkback and goes, okay, let's go again for the top. And I go, okay, and I count it off. And I start again, and I start playing it. And then about maybe a bar sooner, the talkback button, hold on. And then I'm like, what the fuck? And then I'm starting to get nervous. And then he says, Jimmy, and he goes, let's try one more time. And I said, okay. And then I start the song. I don't even get a fucking bar. Not a 1 and 2. And I don't get that at all. He stops me. And then he's talking to the second engineer, or the engineer, excuse me. And I'm like, in my heart's racing. I'm scared. I'm like, fuck, they're going to replace me with like Kenny Aronoff or fucking, with somebody fucking, some huge guy. I'm going to get replaced. And I'm freaking out. And then sure enough, Ted goes, you guys, I'm going to talk back. You guys, everybody take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes. I'm going to sit. I got to talk to Jimmy. And I literally, guys, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I'm not lying. I'm 19 years old. I feel like I'm going to throw up on my drums. And then he walks out to the drum room, and then he pulls up a stool, like a piano stool. It sits next to me. And he goes, how you feeling? And I said, I think I'm okay. I said, is everything okay? And he goes, well, well, why don't we talk for a second? I said, okay. So we start talking. He asked me where I'm from. I said, I'm from Boyle Heights. And he says, Boyle Heights was all Jewish people. And I said, I know this. Mexicans got there in the mid-late 60s, but prior to that, it was all Russian Jewish people that lived there. And so we have a little history thing. It's really, it's a cool conversation. And then a guy comes out, one of the runners comes out with a 12-pack of Heineken beer. And he sits down next to Ted, and Ted looks at me and goes, thank you. The guy walks away, and Ted cracks open a beer, gives it to me. He takes one, he takes a drink, and we're sitting there and we're just talking. And then we were telling some stories, telling some Van Halen stories, which is making me happy. And then about 8 minutes later, he goes, okay. He goes, you want to do this? And I said, sure. We go. I count it off, and I record it. Now that I've just told you guys that story, I want you to listen to the track Kissin' Kitty on the first BulletBoys album. That's the take that I got right after I talked to him. It's what's on the album. What you hear was I just had this heart-to-heart conversation. So fast forward a while later, I asked him about that. I said, why? I go, what was that about, Ted? What was that whole thing? He goes, Jimmy, he goes, you were so nervous that Your playing was so above the tempo. You were out of your pocket. You were not. He goes, you were stiff and rigid. He goes, I knew I just needed to relax you and let you not be so scared of me or so like, overwhelmed by who I am. And I just sat there and went, wow. Because that's something that a producer does. That's not something you get that when you see a little kid staring at you, knowing that he's idolizing you. He knew how to calm me down. So again, my experience with Ted Templeman was up there with one of my best experiences with any producer ever.
Wow.
I need to jump in on this. So you talked about the whole thing of being replaced. I'm a Philly guy. I grew up in this area. I'm a little bit older than you, so I grew up when Cinderella and Fred and those guys were playing the clubs and playing Empire, and it was Britney and Dead End Kids and everybody else who was trying to make it out the your way. Okay, let's talk about being replaced. And I know you and Fred got replaced.
Yeah.
So do you see that a lot? And when you brought that up, it was interesting you made that, and that was the first thing that popped into my head, and you went, oh, Fred. And I'm going, wait a second.
Yeah.
A lot of us here know Fred didn't play on a lot of things.
Right. Yeah, and he's never made any bones about it. He's never lied about it. I mean, when he's asked, he was like, yeah, that wasn't me. But I will tell you this, because I toured with Fred for a long time, and I've sat in a room with him to this very day where I watch him play drums to this very day. And, I honestly don't believe, I think that was a mistake by not letting Fred play on those records. If you listen to the last one that they did do as a real band, which was Heartbreak Station, there's fucking great drumming on that, and there's no way you're going to tell me that he wasn't playing like that after the first tour. There's no way that he was that guy. And again, that to me is always a sign of a producer, I believe, overstepping his boundaries. I think that if a band makes the decision where they say our drummer's not cutting the mustard, producer person, can you help us find a guy? But and that's a band decision, but I know a lot of producers who just kind of feel like I want to sound like a metronome. I want this meter to sound flawless. And that's not rock and roll to me. I don't think, the Rolling Stones aren't fucking flawless, and fucking AC/DC's fucking plays a little on top of the beat when Phil Rudd gets on the chorus, and it's perfect. It's exactly what the song needs, but again, some producers feel like that's something that they need to do in order to get the best production value out of a band. But I'm of the mind that I'd rather get the best performance out of the band. And there's no way to get a better performance than when it's the four guys who have been struggling on the streets, playing fucking Philly all day, all night, playing the fucking clubs, and then they finally get in the studio. That's what I want to see. That's the emotion that I want to get from a band, is when they're in there and they've just kind of overcame one of the obstacles to being a successful band. So I personally never agreed with it, unless you're a pop artist, unless you're, a guy that, really doesn't have a solid drummer in the first place. Yeah, you want to replace the guy you got, yeah. But to replace a drummer that really doesn't need to be because of a tempo or some issue, that to me is unnecessary. That's my personal
Look, I've seen Fred play at the Empire, the Galaxy, the early days before they broke and John brought him in, and I know Fred can play.
Oh,
so this is a two-parter. So that whole explosion was happening. Philly was just starting to get rocked. Right. Cinderella was coming up, Britney, everybody. Then everybody started migrating out west. Do you think the saturation, because your album came out 88, 89, things just started going, we're at the top of the tipping point. The pendulum's going to start going another way.
Yeah, well, we were able to see it happening because labels they did this. They went, well, we know what the formula is now. It's a blonde lead singer. It's a ballad song. They had the formula. They already had the fucking lunchbox printed and pressed before the band had actually even fucking went and hit the road. And that to me is where, and then bands were making $200,000, for a video and shit. It's like, they're never going to recoup that money. And the industry ate itself to a certain extent. This is my personal, after looking around and seeing what happened after the dust settled. And then of course you had, the whole Seattle sound movement came out, and that was like people felt the thing that they felt early on, like with Rat and Motley in Quiet Riot, they felt that energy that was real and it was tangible in audio ways. And they felt that with the Seattle movement, and that's why it shifted over there. But I believe that some industry guy, the fucking label said, get a blonde singer, give me a ballad, and fucking and that's our winning fucking combination. And that really wasn't it at all. And I think that's why we got so saturated. You're right about that.
Wow. Great question, Bob. All right, Max.
Yeah, so changing a little bit the subject, you participated on a Sean Bonham tribute.
Yeah.
There was an album, and then I think for several years, I don't know if it's still on, but for several years there was like a concert.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it. How was the story? How you get the call from this organization, and tell me your passion about drums and Led Zeppelin, because
Oh,
those solos are
come on.
amazing, man.
There's something to be said about a Led Zeppelin record. I mean, you can pick any one, and you can listen to it today and get the same emotional feeling that you got when you were a kid. That. I mean, I'm sorry, but very few bands have ever been able to achieve that goal. I will say that the John Bonham, they're called the Bonzo Bashes.
Yes.
And they were put together by a gentleman named Brian Tishy. And Brian is a lover of drums, and he's a fan of drummers. So, and I think the story goes, I'm either the first guy or the second guy that he called and said, dude, I want to do a thing where we just tip the hat to John Bonham. He goes, let's do it at my house, and we'll do a barbecue, and we'll set up a drum set in the backyard, and I swear to God, I'm not making it up. It's a true story. And I said, sure. I go, I'll show up let me know. I'll get some carne asada. We'll figure that out. We'll make it happen. And then literally 6 months later, he calls me up and he goes, dude, he goes, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. He goes, I have to rent out a huge place to make it happen. So that's how it started. He just started calling people saying, hey, you want to jam some John Bonham stuff? And a lot of drummers absolutely said yes, because like you said, the love of Led Zeppelin and the love of John Bonham and what that man did for the drumming community is no one else has ever done it. Neil Peart was very close to that, but to me, John did way more in certain areas. But those events were really amazing. And I'm going to tell you, this is a quick story, but the first one, there was a moment in a dressing room, and I wish I had a fucking camera. I didn't even think about it. But it's in a room, and this is the true story. So it's a small dressing room, and it's myself, it's Fred Corey, it's Stephen Perkins, it's Vinny Appice, and it's oh fuck, it might be Simon Wright or Chris that played the other Chris that played in AC/DC, Chris Slade.
Slade, yeah.
So we're sitting there in the dressing room in complete silence, and all of us have drumsticks, and we're all practicing on a shoe or on a chair, and all you hear is this. Okay, silence. Nobody's talking, and then finally, Vinny Appice, he stops and he looks around and he goes, can you fucking believe we're so nervous about playing one song for Led Zeppelin right now? Dude, we were all so nervous. We were just in silence. We were like, we're going to go out and play the Led Zeppelin song in front of 1,000 people that they know all the parts better than we do. They know those drum lines. And I just remember it was such an amazing, like when Vinny Appice goes, fuck, can you believe we're doing this for one song right now? It was like such a levity moment. Like, yeah, we're all
Very nice story, man. Very nice story. Funny.
But those Led Zeppelin things, the first one was great because all the Led Zeppelin, the John Bonham family was there. John's sister, John's kids were there. The whole Bonham family sat up in their corner. We got to thank you, give love and kisses. So that first one was epic. And then of course down the line, it got much bigger, but they were really great, and there's such an amazing camaraderie, for brothership of drums.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, Jay.
Yo. Absolutely, no problem. One of the things I thought would just kind of be a fun story for you to talk about, Jimmy, because some fans, maybe even a lot of fans, don't really know this story, but you were touching on it because you're so in touch with your fans and the community, because you, especially over the quarantine situation, have been live so much more often. And I think that's awesome that you're really making that connection. And you were touching on this story because one of your fans wrote it on your comments, and I figured maybe you could elaborate a little bit. You were talking about a Wayne's World plaque and album on your wall because from what you were saying, the band of the Bullet Boys were supposed to be Tia Carrera's backing band in Wayne's World. So I thought you could talk a little more about that.
Wow.
So what happened was we were because if you know that Roberta Peterson, who I mentioned, she was a part of the record making, and Ted Templin was the producer for that record. So we get a call one day, and I believe we're on the road, and then Ted says, "Hey, you guys, I got great news. In this Wayne's World movie, Tia Carrera, the main lead actress, needs a backup band, and we've submitted you guys to go ahead and play it." And then we were, oh my god. And then we got to a point, once we got further down the line, they started saying, okay, so you guys are going to get sides, which is, basically scripts. And I remember Mark had a little bit of a problem with, he had to be the rhythm guitar player opposite of her. So it would have been Mick on one side, Lonnie on the other side, Mark on the other side playing rhythm guitar, and then Lonnie in the far side. And I don't really know the full ins and outs of it, but it ended up being that it didn't work out for some of the people that when we were going to do it. So we waited too long to return a phone call, and the next thing you know, the band you see there was the band that ended up being in it. But for all of about 2 or maybe 3 months, we were going to be the backup band in Wayne's World.
Oh, dude, yeah. That's awesome. And again, this might be a part of this question that you're just not able to answer because, with the band taking the place or whatever. But do you know if had that happened, since Tia was the bass player of that band in the movie, would she have just been the singer if you guys were the band? Do you know?
No, one of the guys in the band would have had to take a back seat.
Oh, so Lonnie, potentially just being the bass player, might have either had to take a backseat or play guitar, or would he
or play keyboards,
or play keyboard? Okay, yeah. So she still would have been the bass player in that band.
Absolutely, yeah.
Gotcha, dude. That's awesome, man. It's such a funny story. I think that's just like such a trip. And a second different question, but just since you've been so involved in all these projects, talk a little bit about, Supernova Remnant, because you were doing a lot with those guys as well before the Bullet Boy thing kind of kicked back off again.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I was on tour with Lynch Mob, and this band that usually would be the direct support for Lynch Mob was this cat, Robbie Gustin, and the band's called, like you mentioned, Supernova Remnant. And he would, the gentleman Robbie would always say, "Jimmy, I fucking love your drumming. It's great. It would fit my music. If you could ever sit in and jam with us." I'd say, "Yeah, if I can." And then there was some downtime that I was literally not doing anything. I was just, home doing studio stuff. And he called me and asked me if I could help out. And I said, absolutely. So I flew out there, and I was flying on a fairly regular basis. We opened up for Michael Schenker. When he did that last year, that big thing where he had all the singers come out and play with him, we opened for that, and we opened for Ace Frehley with him. I opened for basically all when the big dogs come through town, we were the direct support. And and again, like I said earlier with you guys, if I can't help the next up and coming younger bands get to the next level, then what am I doing? That's really a part, I believe, as being a musician, for the way I want to be a musician, is helping other bands achieve their goals. It might not always be me being the drummer of the band. It could be me fucking helping out, just kind of fucking, overseeing something, or just helping direct, say, no, don't sign a contract that says that, you guys. I just want to be able to be a part of a positive moving forward motion when it comes to anything in my life. So with him, when he asked me, I said, absolutely. And I helped him, and I know he got some really great things. And we did a record right now, but the record I believe is still being worked on right now. So again, I really know that his stuff will do well once it gets out there.
Absolutely, awesome. For sure. That's killer, man. When that record gets finished off and pressed, man, we got to get our hands on some of them.
Absolutely, I'll let the guys know, man. I promise.
Angel.
Yes, one of the fans, James Lama, wants to know, can you talk a little bit about writing and how writing deadlines work for record labels?
Well, I'll be honest with you. You know, there's no real label per se anymore. I mean, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. There's no real industry per se. The labels can fluctuate more these days. Where before, you're absolutely right. When they had here's just to give you an idea. So it would be on the roster for release dates, and I'd be able to see these things. It would be David Lee Roth, and this is the true thing. This would be David Lee Roth. It would be ZZ Top. It would be Bullet Boys. And then it would be Damn Yankees, would all be in this like little, like, these things have to be met. So back when that's happening and you have a large machine like a Warner Brothers, you can't fuck around. You need to get those songs, because if you push back too far, you'll get lost in the shuffle. Your record won't come out until next year. And we all know, out of sight, out of mind with music, with fans, like they'll move on to the next band. You know, whoever's out there rocking and rolling. So you got to stick to those back then. But now it's different, you know, because especially now with technology being so accessible. I mean, I could write a song, you know, and send it to somebody tonight, you know, and then they can send it back to me tomorrow. And I can, in Pro Tools, I can mix to the best of my ability, but then still send it to like a Fred Corey, or send it to somebody. You know, I played a little bit on Gilby Clark's most recent record. I played a song on that too. And you know, everybody kind of mixes. Everyone knows a bit about mixing, but they bring a guy in and to help kind of fine tune for most of the projects that I work with. But it's just such a different world today, because it feels less like there's people over your shoulder saying, "Come on, finish it, finish it, finish it." It's really you. You got to be that person now, which is good, because you need to get music out, you guys. If you're a songwriter and you're not releasing songs, then you're actually doing yourself a disservice. I don't care if the song is not really ready. Don't worry about it. You'll write another one. You know, but when guys sit on songs way too long, and like we all sat here, we all watched what's his name? Axl W. Rose. We saw him sit on fucking Chinese Democracy for fucking ever. And the problem was, he let it get in his head. He thought about it way too much. And he rewrote it, he re-recorded, and by the time it got to us, it was like, dude, I bet you the first one you had done was probably the better one that you could, you know. But, you know, that's the thing with artists, is sometimes we overthink things. And that's why it's good to have a manager. You know, thank God for Bullet Boys, you guys. Larry Moran, who runs the Monster of Rock Cruise, is our manager. And he will text a group text in the morning saying, "You guys, I want to hear new songs real soon." And then you'll get a text that night. "You guys, what is going on with those songs?" So I like it, that little push. It helps for me to get in here and stop fucking around and get some songs finished, you know? So it's much easier today in writing songs, as long as you know technology today is your friend.
Did I get you
two
as
more
a
questions
motivator for a band?
Hold on. People were all talking. What's that?
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Jay. I mean, Angel.
No, I just had two more questions from fans.
Go ahead.
Bridget Sullivan wants to know, what new bands do you listen to?
Ooh. I gotta say, honestly, you know, there's only a handful of bands, and there's a band. And it's funny, my son is the one that's turning me on to these bands. There's a band called Knocked Loose. Have you heard of them?
No.
Knocked Loose.
I've heard their name. Yeah.
Okay. Check them out. This is a fucking oh my god, just a fucking beautiful heavy band that it's like Slipknot, but the natural progression, just the heaviness, the grooviness is great. You know, I like, you know, you guys, I grew up on 70s funk. I grew up on, you know, big band jazz. That's a lot of what I listened to growing up. But a band came out a few years ago that I love, that they're called the Malpractice. And I tell you, that band really fucking fucked me up, because I started rewriting all my material to sound like them, and that's not good, because I'm not them. But there's only a handful of bands that I listen to that really I can hear the integrity. I can hear that what they're doing is real. Because you know what? Once you've been a fan of a real band, you know when a band's not being real. You know, you could tell when they're just acting it out. And once I hear that, I walk away. Because to me, there are no good or bad bands. There are only bands that we connect to. Some we don't, and some we do. You know, because there's some band that people fuck. Don't get me wrong, guys. Don't write me hate mail for this. But I personally, I don't get Tool. I don't. To me, Tool didn't. I listen to them and I'm like, it doesn't do anything for me. But I'll listen to Mr. Bungle and like the first 3 Mr. Bungle records and go, holy fuck balls. This is like fucking like I want to fucking pull my brain out and wash it and put it back in. I mean, to me, like that's like, you know, where I gravitate to. But again, Tool sold fucking billions of records, you know. But just because they don't speak to me, it doesn't make any difference. It's just, you know, find the music and the people that you connect with. I think you'll be a happier person.
Bruce wants to know, did you get free whiskey for life for the Jameson commercial?
Best question.
Have you guys seen it? Did you guys, have anybody there and this seen it? So I did a commercial for Jameson Irish whiskey. I will tell you this, you guys. Can you guys see the studio behind me?
Yep.
Yeah.
That commercial essentially paid for most of the equipment I have that I bought. It's not all of it.
Nice.
Yeah, and my wife used to jokingly say, you know, you got some of your money back from them. So, so yeah, I made a chunk of change from that commercial, and it was really cool.
Nice.
And a quick side note on that. There was 200 drummers up for that commercial,
wow.
and some of the heaviest drummers, the big dogs, were up for it, and I got it out of from that. Doesn't mean that I'm better than them. I just happen to be the flavor they were looking for that commercial.
Hey, Angel, do you have a question for him?
Oh yeah, me. I'm sorry. As a drummer, what's the best way that you actually warm up before a show, and any advice to young drummers on the best way to warm up?
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of different ways to do it, but I'm going to tell you guys now, the best way to avoid injury is to not stop playing drums, because I am notorious at getting off tour and then taking a month off from playing drums and then getting back in rehearsal and swinging fucking baseball bats, and then I hurt my wrist, I hurt my shoulder, you know, everything, because everything has now gone soft. Everything is no longer hot and full of blood, and the tissue gets damaged. So the best thing I could tell any drummer is don't stop playing, even if it's just rudiments on a practice pad in bed at night, which I still, after 38 years of playing drums, I still have a practice pad next to my bed and sticks next to my bed right fucking now. If I were to walk into my room right now, you'd go, holy shit, it's right there. So that's the thing. Just always practice no matter what. You don't have to do all the crazy exercises. I mean, don't get me wrong, that stuff does work. But if you never get cold, you won't have injuries. And I'm telling you guys, I've had bad injuries where I thought I was never going to play drums again. And it's scary as fuck to think that I won't be able to do that job. Made me literally, I fucking like had little breakdowns and stuff. But I ended up being okay. I saw a specialist, thanks to Kenny Aronoff, who also had arm problems, sent me to a guy, and they fixed me right up. And now I don't take time off like that anymore. I get behind there, even if it's just playing some rock and roll to like old Rolling Stones records. I'll play 3 records, and I feel like, oh, I feel good. All right, good. So just don't stop playing drums. I think that'll be the best way to stay good.
Okay. I got one more question. I'm sorry.
Hey, Angel, let me jump in real quick before that question, just to piggyback right off of what Jimmy was saying, because for drum teching for Jimmy, the thing I can vouch for, because I brought this up on one of his live feeds to the fans, is his cymbals and stuff are up here. So, like, as far as exactly what he said about him having to swing, that's literally a thing, because he doesn't play also a low-level kit. The stuff is up here. So facing a potential injury, at least as far as speaking for Jimmy off my experience, is definitely a thing.
Yeah. You're right.
Angel, you said there's another
Bill Burke. Hi, Bill. Thanks for joining us again this week. I saw you play with Lynch Mob many times. You are awesome. Between songs, you would talk with George. What would you discuss?
So I would lean over and I'd go, George, did you see that Mexican restaurant next to the fucking hotel? And he'd go, yes, I want to get a carne asada burrito. And I go, yes, let's get, dude, we literally are talking about what we're going to have to eat after the show. but wait,
so cool.
Doesn't it look great? It looks like we're fucking like, we're playing the next rock song or something. No, we're talking about food for after the show.
Very nice.
I have a question. Out of all the music that you recorded with the BulletBoys, with Janie Lane, with Lynch Mob, when you hear the song, any of them, on the radio, and terrestrial radio is not like it used to be.
Right.
And satellite radio, you'll hear most of your songs now, or on a webcast or a podcast. When you hear one of your songs, you turn it up or you turn it down or you turn it off.
I fucking crank that. I break the dial off. I'm going to tell you guys. This is a true story. This happened to me. So, BulletBoys get signed in. I want to say like March of 1988. We go on to make the record the next month. We do the record in a month. We make the entire record in a month with a couple overdubs here and there. We go out and we start touring in that September, and then I'm home from the road during the holidays in December because everything the industry shuts down in December. And then I'm at a gas station. I have a 1969 four-door Nova, Chevy Nova, that I painted all my thrash punk bands on because I was in a full thrash before I joined BulletBoys. Like, I love GBH and I love Black Flag and DRI and fucking Subhumans, and I was all punked out. So I'm in a gas station and I'm putting gas in my car, and like, I don't know about you guys, but I love what they call high signing, which is when you put your radio really loud and you get out of your car so people can hear what you're hearing music wise.
Yeah.
So I still do that. So I have Led Zeppelin on, and it's fucking When the Levee Breaks. Okay. And I'm like, I get out of the car, like looking around, like, what's up? Fuck yeah, Zeppelin, bro. I'm fucking, I go put my gas in my car, and I'm standing in the back of my car because the tank's in the back by the trunk. And the song fades out, and the first time I've ever heard it, smoothupinya, and I literally look around to everybody and nobody understands that this is my song, and I'm literally standing in a gas station, like I have tears. I'm like, fuck, we're on the fucking radio. Wow. And not only that, I came on after Led Zeppelin, and then people in the gas station are looking at me like I'm so fucking crazy, guy, because I'm going, hey, I'm pointing at my car like they get it, But that to me was one of those moments that, I can never fucking, it's like a beautiful moment in my life that I'll never forget. And it's one of the things that keeps me humble and fucking always going, like, you know what, man, I knew there were, all you guys, there were musicians where I grew up at that were fucking way more talented than I was. Some of these guys were fucking legends, but they didn't get the tap on the shoulder, and they didn't get to the next level and the next level and get to where I got to. And it never gets lost on me. I'm so grateful that I've had the experience and the life that I had with music. I still, to this day, guys, I'm telling you, I get off stage and I go, thank you, Father. And that's it. And I'm good until I get back on stage again.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Real quick, Jimmy. So I got another tip of the hat to Philly for you guys. Whose decision was it to pick the OJs for Love of Money, which is probably such an iconic Philadelphia song?
Right.
But you guys did it great justice, throwing it out there and giving it balls.
I got to tell you, I had a version of it in a band that I was in before BulletBoys, and Mick Sueda, actually, the guitar player, had demoed a version of it too. So we had it in our wheelhouse, and when we mentioned it to Templeman, he's like, that's a great idea. And Ted actually was the one that constructed the song, because we were kind of doing an actual version of the song, and he said no. And he's the guy who told me to play the drum beat the way it's mapped out, and then have the guys do the ba 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 and nothing. That was all a Ted Templeman. So we were really, I'll be honest with you guys, there was a moment that there's a thing called the Foundations Forum. They used to happen out here where it was musicians and labels and everyone got together. And I'll never forget, I'm standing there and fucking Lenny Kravitz is walking towards me. This is in 1989. And Lenny Kravitz is walking and I'm like, holy shit. I'm looking around like, is Lenny looking at me? And he walks right up to me and he goes, hey man, he goes, just want to say that fucking, your cover of For Love of Money, man, that's my favorite jam right now, bro. And I go, oh, thank you, Lenny. And he walked away, and I was like, holy shit, that was fucking cool.
Well, I just wanted to say that, thank you for everybody out here in Philly. Curry's got to even go, dude, you made Philly proud.
Well, you know that Fred Corey has a lot to do with the fact that BulletBoys were on the Cinderella Long Cold Winter Tour. He was the one that went to his management and said, Bullet Boys need to be on our tour, and they're the ones that contacted Warner Brothers and made it happen. So that's why, I mean, I didn't know that till for years and years later that Fred told me that, but you know, me and Fred, we're close in many ways, but I didn't know that until recently that he was one of the ones that said Bullet Boys has to be on Cinderella's tour.
That's awesome.
And you know what? I thought you were going to say when you talked about Philly. Every time you say Philly, I always think of the what was it? The show we did with Ozzy on pay-per-view at the Tower Theater.
Oh yeah,
where we got booed half the set. It was fucking glorious.
Who was playing guitar on that tour?
Oh, with Ozzy?
Yeah, was it Zach?
Dude, Zach had literally just joined the band.
Yeah, he picked him up at the Turnpike
That's right.
in Jersey.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you're right.
What a trip.
Yay!
That was the skinny, long-haired blonde Zach.
Right?
Or the beard and getting crazy Zach.
Or the Viking look.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was practically the Steel Dragon, Zach.
Yeah.
I don't want to get my ass kicked, so I'm not going to say anything.
Very
cool, Zach. We love you, Zach. We're just
We
kidding.
do love you, Zach.
Yeah, we're just kidding.
Trust me, we love you, Zach.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. I'll tell him we're just joking.
He's great.
All right. Max, you're being very quiet. How about you?
Yeah, Jimmy, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned Randy Castillo was your buddy, right? And I think he was never recognized like he deserved. Do you agree? And he was in Motley Crue. He played with Ozzy Osbourne. Then he passed away. Yeah, he was. I have friends in common, right? And he was all by himself. Like nobody. I'm sorry that I don't want to get sad or emotional,
Right.
but it's something that to me is not fair. Do you agree? Because you've been close to him. Do you agree? Is that what I'm saying, right? Or he
absolutely.
had.
Go ahead.
No. That's the question, basically.
Yeah, it was really tough because, Randy, he had gotten really sick. And it started out really weird. He was doing a show at the Roxy, and he was having stomach problems all day. And then he ended up, somebody gave him the fucking bright idea to have some whiskey. And what it turned out to be is he had an ulcer, and he had inflamed the ulcer. And then he collapsed in the front of the Roxy, and they took him to the hospital. But while he was at the hospital, they found he had this growth of cancer around his lymph node. And they ended up, that's what started the whole process. So in the end, I got to spend, I would go to his house, I'd pick him up, and we go get lunch he had a California pizza kitchen by his house. So we used to go there and hang out, and he had his own booth there because one of the fucking, this was so rough to watch because a good friend of ours who was just cool, this fucking cool, sexy guy. He had, lost all his hair, and he's really, really frail and thin, but from the radiation, he lost his his salivary glands, so he could no longer produce saliva. So, if you don't know this, if you can't eat food, then because your saliva breaks down most of the food when it's going down your passage. Yeah. Okay, so you could chew it as much as you can, but once it gets down, your saliva does the rest of the work of breaking it down. So he couldn't. So he had to have literally on the table there was like 20 glasses of water. So he would take like a glass this size. Okay. He would take one bite and drink an entire glass of water that size just to help it go down. Otherwise, he could. It was just so difficult to watch. Like I said, he was such a fucking beautiful man. And then, and it was hard because when he got the call that they said that the cancer had come back 10 times worse than it was before, he just said, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to go through the radiation and the chemotherapy again. I can't. My body won't take it. And literally, they said, well, then you have about a month. And it was, I almost want to say, you guys, to the day, it was almost a month that he passed away. So it was a huge loss. And you're right. He is definitely one of the most underrated drummers in the history of rock. Exactly. In the history of rock. Seriously, he is up there with me with with the Ian Pace. He's up there with Alex Van Halen. He's up there with Bunny Carlos, with Joey Kramer. He, to me, is one of the legends for sure.
Definitely. Hey, thank you for sharing that, man. Thank you so much.
Were you able to be a part of the documentary that they made on Randy Castillo?
I was asked, or actually, I was contacted and I never got back, and then and before I knew it, they had done most of it, and and I have other friends that were in it and stuff, and I support it. I reach out to his sister every now and again, but yeah, I just I wish there was more of him out there still that we could watch and see.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jay.
Jay, you have
Yes,
a
sir.
question? About 16 minutes after 10 Eastern Standard Time, so I'm not pushing, but we, want to be considerate of our guests' time as well.
Yes,
So,
we really appreciate you.
Absolutely, for sure. So Jimmy, I
thank
got
you so
a
much.
kind of a question that I think is pretty valid to right now that I think you can definitely bring, to light. So we run an incredibly positive show. We pride ourselves on that.
Right.
We're all a brotherhood. We're different ethnicities, religions, and all that kind of stuff. We've had John Beauvoir from the Plasmatics on our show. We've been doing this every week. We're in our 4th month. You're the first guest that we've had in about the last month of a different ethnicity when it's gotten a little ugly in the world and stuff like that.
Right.
What would you just like to put out just positively? And it's part of did you have any difficulties? Because 30 years ago, it's not 30 years now.
Right.
Did you ever have any difficulties back then? But also, just what can you just put out as a love message right now, being that you're of an ethnic background?
Right. The truth is, I have been a part of those negative experiences when it comes to race. The thing is I knew, and my mom taught me early on that, more likely if somebody has that feeling towards you, it's their problem. It's an issue they have to deal with, and don't hate them for it, because that hate, you take that hate on into your heart and your soul, and you don't want that. So I've never really, when someone has done it in the past, and I just walk away, and it's got to do with me. The thing that I guess what I've said to my close, because what I do, you guys, I will see arguments on the internet and of people, of friends, of guys I've known for 35, 40 years, and I will call them personally. And I'll say this, and I'll say this, I said this to them, and I'll say this right now to everybody here. At some point, you're going to have to come to the table and sit down across from somebody that you don't agree with. And the sooner we can understand that this can't be dealt with a fist, and it can't be dealt with through hate. It's going to have to be dealt with cooler heads, and knowing that this is us. Okay, we're America. And going further, this is the planet fucking Earth. That's all of us together. At some point, we're going to have to figure this stuff out in order to move forward. And I just would like to remind people that you know what? There's a lot of love out there. Try to focus on the love. Focus on the people who are really doing the thing the right way, which is putting one foot in front of the other and not saying, fuck you. I just want to be able to say to somebody, you know what? You may not agree with me. I don't agree with you, but fuck, we can get through this, and we're going to have to figure out a way to do it. So, and it's tough because, like you said, I've lost family members over this, where people don't want to talk anymore to each other, and that to me is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking all the way around. But, my hope is that we just get tired. We just get tired of fucking the bickering, and we go, okay, enough. Let's sit down, let's have a cup of coffee, or for some of you, let's have a beer and let's just fucking talk for a second, and let's forget about, this ugliness, just so we can figure out how to move forward. So that's what my hope is, that we can move forward peacefully and do it the right way.
Absolutely, Jimmy. We appreciate that, man, because it's a touchy subject, and none of us, especially on this panel, none of us are going to pretend that that's a fun thing to talk about or a fun place to go, but it's just so important to put out the positive, the good point, and exactly put out the positivity, and just let people know that, not everybody's cut from the same cloth. It's just important to remember that, there are differences, but there's just so much good.
Yeah, and there really is, you guys. So absolutely, I'm looking forward to the day when we can sit across the table, with people who used to hate and stuff, and just become fucking just acquaintances and have some basic humanity and some basic respect for each other.
Absolutely. Thank you, bro.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
How about Angel? Do you have a last question you'd like to ask Jimmy?
He's reading.
With the Bullet Boys reunion, can fans expect to see any new music, like a song, album, or EP?
We're working on stuff right now. It's not coming as fast as it once did before, but like I said, these are new times. People are adjusting to the way that songs are being passed back and forth via the internet. You know, where a lot of people aren't used to just getting, songs and riffs and then working on them. People like to be, have been in a room with other musicians, and that's how you kind of create songs. But we're trying to do it this other way, and I'm hopeful that we can get at least an EP out somewhere in the next month.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bobby.
I'm really good, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. So
Yeah,
Yes, we really do.
I just
Thank
want
you.
this crap to be over. I just found out today Disneyland is opening on the 17th of July, so my butt might be flying out to your land because ours.
Very nice, man. No, thank you so much, Jimmy. Dude, we love you. Thank you for your message, for the rock and roll, for the music. This is what the spirit of this show is, to keep the music, to keep the legacy, to bring all the people together, share the music, and have a good time. So that's what we want. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your good vibe. I really appreciate it, brother. This was one of my favorite interviews so far, man.
Yes,
So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I
As a
appreciate
fan,
that.
it means a lot.
Absolutely, guys. It means a lot to me as well. I really mean that.
And one last thing, social media. How can people reach out to you if they want to say hi or talk to you?
Yeah, my handle is just my name, jimmyd'anda. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a music Facebook. I have a regular friend Facebook. So I have a YouTube channel, Jimmy D'Anda, as well. So I have all the regular platforms. So anybody can reach out to me. I try my best to get to everybody. I try to respond in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just like an emoji that's a thumbs up. I try my best. There are times I'm responding for. My wife looks at me and she goes, "Honey," she goes, "Be blessed that many people want to fucking talk to you." And I'm like, "You're right, you're right." So but I'm Jimmy D'Anda everywhere. You can look me up.
Rock and roll.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy.
We appreciate it and appreciate you, and keep kicking ass. And we look forward to seeing you in the near future with any
Absolutely.
project.
Absolutely,
Yes.
guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we're closing the show. We're closing the show. At the beginning, we have some technical issues. We're going to close the show with that minute of your biography that is, by Jay. Jay is reading your, who you are, where
Nice.
you've been, and I see you, everybody else, next Wednesday. Thank you for joining us, everybody. This is awesome, dude. Rock and roll. Let's keep the rock and roll alive, brothers.
Yes.
Nice.
Jimmy, if you have a second, just stick around for just a minute after we go off air.
Absolutely.
See you guys.
Jimmy D'Anda was born and raised in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles, and began playing drums at the age of 13. In subsequent years, he honed his skills by performing in various bands around East LA and the Sunset Strip, before auditioning and landing his rightful place on the throne for the Bullet Boys. After signing with Warner Brothers Records, he then toured the world with the likes of Cheap Trick, Ozzy Osbourne, and Bon Jovi. Over the years, Jimmy has recorded or toured with many outstanding artists, such as George Lynch of Dokken and Lynch Mob fame, guitarist Greg Mara, Mike Starr from Alice in Chains, and the late, great Jamie Lane of Warrant. Jimmy also participated in the first major tribute for John Bonham, entitled Bonzo, The Groove Remains the Same, a night in honor of John Henry Bonham. Other very notable drummers that also performed that night were Steven Adler, Vinny Appice, Kenny Aronoff, Frankie Banali, and John's own son, Jason Bonham.
You are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.